Ready. I'm using a springform pan to make it easier to unmold after baking. But in order to keep the water bath from seeping into that chocolate cake, I'm using 2 layers of aluminum foil to wrap it. Now the first step, so it unmolds well, is to line the bottom with parchment. And I usually rub the bottom with either butter or shortening because oil makes it slide. And I want the parchment to stick in place. See, now it's not going to move as much. And then I'll spray it with a nonstick spray that also contains flour. And that's more to get the sides. And now I bring up the sides of the double layer of the foil. And I have used a single layer of foil, and water gets in. And even when you do a double, after you take off the first piece of foil, you'll find that there's a little bit of water that seeps between the first and the second. Then you'll be convinced. So place it into the pan. And now pour this wonderful, luscious chocolate mixture right on top of the parchment. And when it bakes, it's going to puff up and then settle down. Because this is dense, it's really like a chocolate truffle. Maybe you could say a chocolate truffle married to a chocolate mousse. Somewhere between the two, because it's a little more airy than a chocolate truffle. It's not going to even out in the oven. So with a little offset spatula or your rubber spatula, spread it evenly. The Oblivion Torte is now ready to bake in a preheated 425-degree oven. The first baking time will be 5 minutes, but I'm turning the pan into a water bath, and I'm doing it by pouring hot water into the pan, and I like to do it once it's in the oven. Just about halfway up the sides. And this is what makes the torte bake evenly. It also keeps it from drying out. So now this is going to bake for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to be covering the top loosely with foil that's been lightly buttered. After the first 5 minutes of baking, it's just barely going to be puffed up, but we protect it with foil for the remainder of the 10 minutes of baking in order to keep it from burning. And even after 10 minutes, it won't look dry, it won't look done, but it's going to continue to cook and to harden when it solidifies in the refrigerator, because it has to sit at room temperature for 45 minutes and then in the refrigerator for 3 hours. You can see that it's completely solid, and now the trick is to unmold it in one neat piece. I like to use this handy little butane burner. In the old days we used huge ones, but indoors it feels a lot safer to use the little ones. So what I'm doing is turning it on and then going against the side. And this is just going to melt that outer layer where we have the grease and the flour and help it to release cleanly. And around where the springform is, I do a little bit of extra because it's thicker right there. Use a little metal spatula or a thin, sharp knife. And if it seems like, I see a little bit of meltiness in between, so I know I don't have to continue heating it. If it's hard to insert it, just apply a little more heat. Once you've gone all the way around, pressing the metal spatula well up against the sides of the pan, gently release, and you can see that it came away in one piece with beautiful sides. Now, you could either slice it right now if you're feeling uncomfortable at all, or if you want to take off the bottom, here's how to do it. Have a totally flat plate, because if it's concave in the middle and this is soft, it's going to start flexing and cracking. Cover it with plastic wrap. And I'm going to unmold and get the bottom off. Okay, it's turned upside down. And now, in order to have this release smoothly, I'm going to heat the bottom of the pan. Doesn't take much. If it doesn't come away easily, we can always apply more heat. And now all we have to do is peel off that parchment. And that's the easy part. Now you're home free. You could leave it like this to serve if you're doing it in the back of the kitchen, or if you want to do a terrific presentation, you can take a nice plate and just flip it over. But don't let it sit don't use a really heavy plate. If you do, keep them separate and do it quickly so that it doesn't smush it. And this is really most moussey and delicious when it's allowed to sit at room temperature for a short while. But when you're slicing it, be sure and use hot water, because that will go beautifully through the thickened chocolate. And a thin, sharp knife. See, it sinks right through. And usually when I do this in front of people, if they're standing there, there's always a little extra on the knife. They're standing there ready to take it and eat it. In fact, if you have a lot extra, you can take that and make it into little truffles, little balls, and put it on top. And the first slice I always make a little large because, as you know, that's the tricky one to get out. It's easy to slice when firm. What I like to do is to let it sit for 10 minutes before serving. And you can see how moussey it is. A little pool of strawberry sauce. And it's also nice to have a few really fresh strawberries as well. You can put it right on top, or you can just put it around the sides. And here I have the white contrast to the plate. I like the red, the chocolate, and the white, or you could have a little mound of softly whipped cream. Is always lovely. I like to do rather odd numbers. So 3 would be the number. And that's very rich, so you would not want to have a larger piece than that. Can you believe that this luscious-looking cake is made with just 3 ingredients? But what ingredients? Your favorite eating chocolate, pure butter, eggs. What could be bad here? This is Rose Levy Beranbaum with Baking Magic. See you next time, and meantime, bake something magical for yourself.